Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We are here at the Radioactive RC Garage, and we have with us two giant bashers. Have you ever wondered how they take a store-bought RC and turn it into a monster? Well, you're going to learn about all that and more today on the Radioactive RC Ranch. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We are out here in the garage and we've got a nice kerosene fire here. We thought we'd talk a little bit of shop, especially after we released that video of the Radioactive 12S Super Shredder being built. I'm sure you guys had a lot of questions about that, as well as wanting to see some size comparisons. So we have another Radioactive bulletproofed shredder here from a previous video that you guys have seen. This is a customer of mine, and they are slowly, progressively building this shredder out how they want. As you can see, it already has the Radioactive bash bar. It has had the diff and fluid bulletproofing treatment on this one. And so let's take a look at some size comparisons. Before we get into that, I want to point out two things. One, all of these shocks are the same size. You have to use the same size. So if you're buying the Kraton shocks for this, they have to come from the rear. So you need 4 rear Kraton 6S shocks for this shredder. Now this one, this is more for bashing. As you can see, the springs, these are from the Traxxas Max, quite a bit beefier. They have a lot more spring in them, as well as an additional spring on the inside. However, this is the setup I recommend for bashing. You don't have to worry about the size on these springs. You just need a complete set of the Traxxas Max, not the X Max, the Max shocks. Great for bashing. However, the Arma Kraton shocks, these are a little bit more lightweight and a little bit better for tuning and racing. I'm pretty much a racer at heart. As you guys can see, I do love bashing, but I really like getting the most out of my RCs and getting a lot of speed out of them. Okay, so let's take a look at the differences here. We have got some wheel comparisons, some hub comparisons. These wheels weigh a little bit more than these guys, but they're not as much as the Pro lines and some of the other heavier 17 millimeter tires that a lot of you shredder owners are running. So this tire does look big, and it is belted and it is heavier, but it's kind of an in-between. It's kind of a go-between between some of those big, beefier tires and your stock shredder tires. So let's look at the steering servo that it comes with. This actually doesn't come with the 25 kg, but it's the 1/10, 1/8 scale servo. So let's take a look at that compared to our 1/5 scale servo. As you guys can see, we did make some adjustments to this servo saver. We ended up having to cut a few parts, manufacturing some things, but I wanted to just show you guys the size difference between those two. It's a world of difference. I've tested it out and there's just no comparison. I wish I could have put a full-size servo in here, but we'll get into that a little bit more. So the big difference between this and this now is the weight. This one you can pretty much power to weight, excellent, but you can pick it up with one hand. This one, although it does have the batteries, it is quite a bit heavier. Definitely more on the lines of an X Max or a Kraton 8S. So those are the major differences. It really only sticks up maybe maybe a ½ inch, maybe just a little bit more than a ½ inch size-wise. But wow, what a machine. The reason I chose this to do this build is because look at all this room in here. There is so much room. It's quite frankly like the Bob Ross of bashers. You can pretty much build it out however you like. So now that we got some size comparisons, let's go into more in depth about what it took to build the Super Shredder. All right, guys, the Radioactive Super Shredder. Let's get into it. What did it take to build this beast? I think the best thing to do is to start from the inside and work our way out. So let's start right here at the receiver box. This is a scale 1/10 scale toolbox for a crawler that I had in my collection, and it had a very tight lid on it. Worked out well. We have one hole on this side, one hole on this side. The ESC wires come in on this side, servos and fan wires come in on this side. Other than those holes, everything is, we'll call this water resistant. We'll do that. It's definitely not waterproof, but definitely better than what came from the factory. Right here, guys, we have our dual ESCs, 150 amps each, 300 amps in total. This right here is our master ESC, and this right here is our slave ESC. Really like that setup. And a lot of you guys were wondering why I used Red Cat products. I wanted to show you guys that this is what could have come from Red Cat. That's why I used the motors. I know that there was a lot of different combinations I could have used, as well as the ESCs. However, I wanted to make this as much Red Cat as I possibly could, and I thought that that was kind of a cool idea. A lot of you guys were asking about the wiring. I wanted to point out that this is 10 gauge wiring. This is not your typical 12 gauge wiring, so it is, I don't know, a lot beefier. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, but hopefully that'll prevent any fires that we have. If not, I'll change them out to the EC5s. That'll be no problem. But for right now, we're going to try to use these Dean's connectors as well as the 10 gauge wire. Moving on to our servo, this was quite a headache trying to figure out just exactly how to configure this. As you guys can see, this is a little bit different than the first video. The servo saver we had to turn upside down. We had too much torque twist in that linkage, and it wasn't keeping these tires stable at speed, and we just can't have that. We need we have a lot of weight here. We need to keep it stable, especially if we're going to be talking about going and reaching speeds of 60 miles an hour and plus. Who knows? So we ended up making a little aluminum extension here for this linkage to hook up to, as well as we had to cut just a little bit out of the chassis splash protectors right there, as well as this piece of this front support. We had to cut that out in order to create clearance. I don't think that that's going to create too much of an issue, especially with this bash bar involved, which gives us a little bit extra support in that front end that already is missing the aluminum on the bottom. So as you can see here, I just did some aluminum jigs. As you can see, those holes that are in this upper chassis worked out really well. Thanks, Red Cat. So all I did not drill any additional holes into this upper chassis plate. I just used the existing holes that are already in there. I just fashioned up my own aluminum jigs, and we had a razor thin margin there for the bash bar, and we had to have that in there because that's what gives us all that protection. So we fashioned it up in this way, and I'm very happy with the finished product. It took some research and development, but we got it done. All right, guys, let's talk about this double motor system. To my knowledge, I think that's only been done a couple times. I think I saw an X-Max video one time with a double motor, but I don't know of any other bashers or a 1/5 scale cars that come with a double motor. So I thought that that was a really cool idea. Remember that the whole idea of this was to make a true 1/5 scale Red Cat shredder. That's why we needed all the proper components. I could have gone with a giant motor, but I thought this was so much more interesting. And I want to show you guys how I did this. Everybody says you won't use math while you're in school, but they were wrong. And we ended up using math for this very, very cool build. And what I ended up using was a scribe compass. So this is the tool that I used in order to make this motor mount perfect with the mesh of the spur gear and match up with our factory one. So let's take a quick look at the underside of our chassis. So there's only two holes in the chassis that are centered, and that is on the center diff supports. So over here you have your motor mounts, but I want to point out something. I don't know if you guys have ever looked, but those motor mounts are super, super thin in there. So even if I was to have put a giant can right there for our power system, I'm not so sure that this chassis would have supported that kind of power over here. This doesn't look like it can handle anything bigger than the can size that it currently has. I haven't measured everything for sure, but I think you guys can see that. So what I elected to do was to keep the thickness of the aluminum, which is actually quite thick for a chassis. So what you do is you basically measure off of your screw. It's very, very important that you already have your pinion set on the factory motor mount. You have to have it set just perfectly. And here's the one drawback. You can only use that size of pinion once you have this set up. So you want to have a lot of research and development on what speeds and what kind of power you want out of your shredder. I don't want to be going any faster than 60 miles an hour. What I want to do is have a lot of fun up until that point. I have other RCs that are made for that kind of speed. So this one, we just wanted to go really, really fast up until that point. So I decided to go with an 18 tooth pinion. And what we did is we went ahead and set it. And once you have those screws set, you put this scribe compass right in the middle and work your way over to the other side, and you ground yourself a little mark there. And then you go back to the other only centered mount on the underside of the chassis and get your measurement and come over here and mark the X where you do that. You do this for all four of those bolts, and then you end up with your pattern over here where you can either use your Dremel or your drill and drill it out how you like. So I want to show you how mine turned out. As you can see, pretty clean job there. I elected to have the thicker headed bolts. They do stick out just a little bit, but I'm willing to take that risk. I don't chassis slap a whole lot or drag my chassis on a lot, so I would rather have the bigger, girthier bolts in that motor side, and I can absolutely tell you that this side, the side that I built, is stronger than this side. I'm much more confident in it. The motor mounts will not move. They can't slide. They only have one spot on the 18 tooth pinion. So that is how we did that. Of course, we wanted to include a 1/5 scale fan in there. You can't put more than one fan on this receiver. I know I can put another receiver on here and run as many fans as I want, but I'm trying to keep it Red Cat as much as I can. So we just elected to do a giant rocket fan. So that is that. All right, let's take a look at the springs. I don't know if you guys saw, but the springs in the video, they were hurting. They're the factory Arma springs. This is the spring that I was using, and they are just, there's just not a whole lot to them. They worked out perfect on this model without all this additional weight. However, it didn't work out very well after. So I put these bigger springs in. They're shorter, but twice the thickness in the metal, and you don't have as much spring and as much bounce, but they are very, very stiff. And if you had these shocks already or were looking for a stiffer spring in them, this is what I ended up using. I believe this is from the old original Big Rock, the 6S Big Rock, the one that had the locking diffs and everything. But I guess the model number is off of that. I'll have to get, let's see if it's on that. There we go. That is the model number in case you guys are interested. All right, so let's talk about these hubs. There are a couple ways of doing this. Of course, I make my own hubs. There is a video about that. I'll post that probably right up here. It doesn't show exactly how they're built, but it gives you a more in-depth look at what goes into these hub systems. Now, there are also hub systems that you can buy from Arma, but or buy for Arma rather, but this hub system is a little bit different. This here is a Arma hub, as you can see. Well, let's pull some of the Red Cat hexes here. Let's go over. There's our shredder. And all right, so here are our hubs. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is what makes life so difficult sometimes for hobbyists in between working with Red Cat, Arma, and Traxxas. Everybody wants to be different and original. So as you can see there, that is the problem. This is an Arma hub, and this is a Red Cat shredder hub, and this is why we have so much trouble finding extensions and different parts for our hubs. So what you have to do is you have to manufacture, if you buy your hub extension / adapter, if you buy it, you're going to have to manufacture a shim that will go in between these, or machine a piece of metal that goes in between there that won't wobble, because a lot of people try to put different things in there, but it has too much give and it gives your wheels too much wobble. You really don't want that. You want your wheels to be very, very stable. You don't want them wobbling. You want them really tight. So if you're inclined, that's what we do to make a 24 millimeter hub. You have to basically manufacture or machine a shim that goes in there. So whether it can be done or not in your garage, that's how it's done. So we'll put that aside there. Well, guys, this is pretty much what I would consider to be a final product. I'm really, really happy with the turnout. I am very, very excited to run this for you guys. I can tell you that the first time we ran it, like I was saying with these springs, it squatted down so hard the chassis hit the ground, and there was just no way that those springs were going to survive up, even without jumping. Let's fire it up here, and let's take a look real quick at it running before we have our full run video. All right, let's see here. Get this to where you guys can see, and we're going to turn on our receiver here. All right, the master and the slave. All right, guys, let's take a look at that steering servo. Very, very fast. Look at that. Just amazing. All right, guys, let's give it a little trigger pull here. Ooh, that sounds wonderful. That is so cool. Oh my gosh, you guys, I wish you could feel the torque in this monster. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, I hope you guys are liking what you're seeing. If you guys haven't already, like and subscribe. You guys have found the right channel. We appreciate you guys watching. Welcome to the RC family, and we will see you Radioheads next time.